Hello, welcome to Raymond Castile's Basement of Horror. I want to thank everyone for their outpouring of support as I go through this situation with my cat, Stinker. If you haven't seen it, go back and see my video on my beautiful 19-year-old cat, Stinker. He's in his final days. He's suffering from kidney failure. Almost a couple of weeks ago, a vet gave him 1 or 2 weeks to live. But as of this day, December 8, 2019, he's still alive, and he's still eating and drinking, and he's still roaming around, and I'm still petting him and loving him, and I'm still sleeping on the floor with him every night. So as of today, he's still alive, still kicking. How much longer will I have him? I don't know, but I'm trying to appreciate the time I've got with him while it lasts. It's been a while since I did a Basement of Horror video, a normal one, talking about toys. And even though I'm still going with the situation with Stinker, and of course the whole Kappa thing is still hanging over everybody's head, I felt like I had to get back in the saddle and do another one. It's possible that this would upload after Stinker passes, if he dies in the next few days. I hope not. When he passes away, I will post a video to let you all know, so you'll know. So you might see that before you see this. I don't know. I hope not. As far as the whole Kappa thing, a lot more information has come out in the last couple of weeks, and I'm feeling better about my position as far as my channel is concerned. But, time will tell. After January 1st, we'll see how it actually plays out in the real world. Talk is one thing, but let's see what actually happens. But I'm feeling better about the survival of this channel, and I don't think I'm going to have to change very much. I think it's from the information I've gotten. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos about this, not just, some joker spouting off what he thinks, but people who are either attorneys, or have talked to attorneys, or have talked to the FTC, or etc. And I think it's clear that this channel is not for children, and these videos that I'm making, the Basement of Horror, they're not for children. Even though we talk about toys, it's not for children, and it's not monetized. So I hope we're okay. We'll see. We'll see how things play out in 2020. Okay. Oh, and look at this. So I've got something new here. I've got this screen. A friend of mine suggested I use this. We'll see how it works, because my voice was too it was too explosive. So he suggested I add this screen. Now I have to say, it's a lot of hardware in front of my face. This whole rig is a lot of hardware in front of my face, and I don't know if it's kind of silly looking or what, but I just feel like I'm almost like hiding behind it. Hello? Basement of Horror. How you doing? Peekaboo. So that's kind of how I feel. We'll see how it goes. I think this whole microphone situation is going to have to change in the future. I don't know, it's too much. Maybe something like a table-based stand that, has just to stand the microphone up like this. Yeah. Okay, so we are going to talk about toys. The subject of the video is going to be Bristol-Myers Monster Vitamins. So not toys exactly, but monster-related, something that in the 70s, 50 years ago, was marketed for kids. We're talking about today from the standpoint of an adult collector and historian looking back at this for historical, cultural reasons and antiquarian interest. Okay, so the Bristol-Myers, they made a lot of different vitamins, and I ate these when I was a kid. They might as well have been candy. They were sweet, they were crunchy. I remember as a kid sometimes just eating several of them. You weren't supposed to, but I did, as I didn't like candy. And they were bright colored. I don't know if Bristol-Myers made these characters, but there were Flintstones vitamins. And I think they're still around, I'm not sure. But there were Flintstones vitamins also that I liked a lot, and some other cartoon kind of kiddie-oriented vitamins. Bristol-Myers, during the period we're talking about, made the monsters, and they made something called PALS. PALS. I'm not familiar with those. I don't remember PALS. But I certainly remember the monster vitamins very well. I ate those all the time. I loved the monster vitamins. I think they were introduced around 1972, and they were around at least through 1974, because there was a TV commercial that we'll talk about that was broadcast in 1974. But they were kind of crunchy and kind of tart, kind of sweet. It came in different colors. And the monster vitamins in particular, they came out during this monster craze when we had the resurgence of the Aurora. I always, in these videos, when I talk about the Aurora monster models, I always call them the Aurora models. I just slur it like the Aurora models. No, it's the Aurora models, the Aurora monster models. The Aurora monster models from the 60s were reissued in 1972 in those square glow boxes. And then we had Famous Monsters of Filmland magazine, which had been around for a long time, but it was a new generation was kind of discovering it at that time. And we still had the horror hosts on TV. It was this resurgence of monster stuff. Then you get the Mego monsters and the Ahai monsters and the Lincoln monsters and the Bendies and the Jigglers and the puzzles and games and all kinds of cool stuff. The 70s Ben Cooper costumes and just lots of wonderful monster stuff. So the Bristol-Myers monster vitamins were part of that 70s monster craze, which is the one I experienced. I grew up with that 70s monster craze and all this monster stuff everywhere on TV, at the store, the toy aisles, even in the grocery store, the monster cereal. Just everywhere you look, monsters, monsters, monsters. So I was fortunate to grow up at that time because it really hasn't been like that, not quite, ever since. I don't think we've had another era quite like that. Kids in the 60s and the 70s experienced it somewhat in the early 80s, and that's it. It hasn't been quite like that. I mean, we'll talk about that in future episodes. There were other periods of monster fandom in the 90s, late 90s, around the turn of the millennium. There was some monster fandom then, but a lot of that was aimed at adults and like middle-aged fans, nostalgia, more so than aimed at young people. So that makes a difference. So that's all the preamble to kind of set the scene for what we're going to talk about. So let's actually see some of these monster vitamins. Here is a package, and it's all wrapped up, but I will take it out of the package. It's been in this package many, many years. But I will take it out of there so we can get a better look at it. All right, here. Okay, here it is. This is a box of Bristol-Myers Monster Multiple Vitamins. There's the back of the card. And as you can see, it's opened. So let's just go ahead and take that out. And you need to be really careful because the lid is pretty soft around the edge there. Okay. There it is. An unopened bottle of Bristol-Myers Monster Vitamins. And the box with the flap has opened, but it's pretty good condition. I mean, there's no, it's unpunched, and the flaps aren't damaged. They're just separated. Bottom's pretty good. And this bottle's never been opened. Here's the bottle. And you can see the cotton in there. The label shows the various monsters. It has nutrition information. The tops is press down while turning. And the cotton looks like it's in good shape. There's some kind of paper inside. I'm wondering what that is. It's on the very top. It's like, I don't know. I'm not going to open it to find out. But it looks like there's some paper in there. And you can still see the colors of the monsters. All I see is like purple and blue and kind of pink. I don't see any light colors. So they're not the same colors as the depiction on the label. They're not those colors. They're much darker. And looking at the box is really cool. It looks like a haunted house. So the box itself looks like it is the house. It's designed so that it's almost like a play set, like the box is their house. The part that juts out the bottles in is like a part of the house that sticks out. It's got the window, and here's the window behind them. This is like the roof, and here's the door right here, and a car outside the door, and I don't know if that's a skylight or a chimney. Here we have more windows, and you can see the roof. So the box is like a haunted house playset almost. It's like an accessory. And I can imagine taking the vitamins themselves and kind of playing with the vitamins. I think I did that. I'm sure I did that at some point. But it's a natural thing to do, kind of playing with the vitamins until your mom sees what you're doing and says, stop that. And let's see what the date is on this. Yep, sure enough, 1972, as I thought. Dear Mother, Monster vitamins come in fun, monster shapes to encourage children to take their daily vitamins. Monster vitamins are from Bristol-Myers, a company that has made products for good family health for more than 80 years. 1972, Bristol-Myers Company, distributed by Bristol-Myers Company, New York, New York, 10022, made in USA. And interesting that, look at this though, this is interesting, it has a barcode. In 1972, it has a barcode. Now that's interesting. What is the story on that? Because I didn't think barcodes were around that early. This is an original. This is not some reproduction. This is a real deal. But what is with that barcode? I mean, it's a food product, so maybe someone can chime in the comments. Maybe that barcodes were around in the food industry long before they were used with toys and other merchandise. I don't know. I'm not used to seeing barcodes on toy items in 1972. It just wasn't the case. But this is a food. It's a pharmaceutical item. So it's a highly regulated item. It's pharmaceutical. So that might make a big difference. I don't know. I'll see the nutrition information. Can I see any of this stuff? Each tablet, let's see, dosage, 1 tablet daily for children over 2 years of age, may be chewed or dissolved in the mouth. Made with natural sweeteners, artificial coloring and flavoring, keep out of reach of children. Well, let's see. It doesn't have, or does it? It's not listed in terms of percentages of daily allowance like we're used to today. It's just multiples of MDR, like minimum daily requirement, I guess. And it's got ages 2 to 6 and ages 6 to 12. I don't want to handle this too much more. I see a little bit of discoloration on the box there. I don't want to get my oils all over that nice white box. So let's put this aside here. I'll put this back here where you can... I'll try. Well, it's not going to stand up. Oh, there it goes. And by the way, this screen, my hand has run into this screen several times. So we're going to have to do something about that. Every time I try to reach over here, it goes clunk, 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 runs into that. I tried attaching it to the table and to different things. This is the only thing that worked. But now I've got this weird... Okay, we'll figure it out. Hello. All right, so I remember that these tasted pretty good. Like I said, it was sort of a tart, sweet flavor. It was a unique taste, and I did like it. And I ate quite a few of them. Now I've got some information here about these items, these vitamins. And let's see. So these came in, see, I just hit it again. Yeah. So these came in a large and a small size. And I believe this is actually the large size because I had one of these before. And the box, well, you know, I think I wanted to say that it was smaller, but come to think of it, I don't think so. I think maybe the one I had before was actually the larger one. Many years, like in the 90s, many years ago, I had another bottle with a box like that. But I think this is actually a small size. And the one I had before was the larger size. I don't know. But I sold that in the 90s. I got it in the 90s. I don't remember when I sold it, but it was many years ago. I don't want to say what I got for it, but it was quite a lot of money. I was surprised. It was quite a bit. Much more than I expected. And I don't remember what I paid for this, but I've had this for a long time too. And I've had this probably 20 years. I've had it a long time. Well, I wanted to talk about the names of these monsters, and so I need to look at a piece of paper when I do this. Okay, so there's Gorgonzola, who is kind of a big, dumb Frankenstein-like monster. He doesn't look like Frankenstein. And that's the interesting thing. None of these characters really look like classic monsters. You'd think there'd be Frankenstein and Dracula and Wolfman, or, equivalents. There's nothing like that. They're completely weird and original and different. Kind of reminds me of, like, Freaky's cereal. Weird things like that, that's the best example. Freaky cereal. If you know Freaky cereal, it just had these weird creatures that it just had no explanation whatsoever. It was the most bizarre concept for a cereal. These weird monsters that lived in a tree in some weird land. But that was the kind of weird things that they marketed to kids in the 1970s. Don't know what they were taking in those advertising offices and all those corporate offices where they were pitching this stuff. They must have been inhaling something, but they had some weird ideas, and this is sort of like that. It comes from that era, and the illustration style is so 70s. It reminds me of the stuff I saw in children's books from the 1970s, that kind of basic illustration style, but it has a lot of character to it. It's simple, but has a lot of character. It's very, there's a kind of subversiveness to it, the way that it's drawn. It's kind of just weird, off-kilter. So the names of these monsters: Gorgonzola, he's the big, dumb Frankenstein type of monster. He doesn't look like Frankenstein, but he's kind of that archetype. He's like the big, dumb, his voice is sounds dumb, deep voice. And then there's Babbly Bat, who's just a bat. There's Fedorable, who's a giant hat. And he's actually more like a bowler, like the British round hat. But he's called Fedorable. But he's just a hat. He's like a living hat. And maybe there's a creature in there somewhere, like a hermit crab in a shell, but it seems like it's just the hat itself is the living thing. There's Sneaky and Squeaky, which is a two-headed monster, and they're just sort of round, shapeless creatures with like two heads. There's the Monster Mobile, and that's a car, but the car's alive. So it's like a Munsters style monster car, but the car's alive. The car's a character. There's the weirdest one, I think, Screaming Mimi. Screaming Mimi is, even as a kid, I didn't know what she was. I couldn't figure it out. She's holding her hair up, like pulling her hair up. But she looks like she's a bottle or a lamp. Her shape is like almost like a ketchup bottle or something, or a wine bottle. The way when she pulls her hair up, it kind of creates the shape of the bottle, and she only has one arm that's shaped kind of like a handle, and you don't see any other arm. So she's got this one handle-shaped arm pulling her hair up. It's sort of like the neck of a bottle, and then she's got her face down below. And what is she? Is she a bottle? I never could figure that out. What the heck is Screaming Mimi? What is she supposed to be? And then my favorite one's the Blob, which is the only one that has a name that kind of connects to classic monster characters. It's obviously not a licensed depiction of the movie Blob, but it is called the Blob. It doesn't look like the Blob. like the movie Blob. It looks like this segmented creature, almost like a bunch of pancakes stacked on top of each other with the eyes on the top. It's really weird, but he was always my favorite. And not so much like the vitamin itself as the artwork on the packaging and the bottle and the commercials and all the advertising for it, because there was definitely, as we'll talk about, there was definitely advertising for this stuff, and that's where I got my sense of who was my favorite character, which ones I liked, or wondered what is Screaming Mimi, is she a bottle, what is she? That all came from the advertising, not the vitamins themselves. So my favorite was the Blob, and I was exposed to this vitamin Blob before I saw the Steve McQueen Blob. So when I finally saw the movie, The Blob, I expected it to look like this vitamin Blob, and it obviously did not, and so that kind of confused me. Also, there was a skit on the Electric Company, I think it was Electric Company, that had the Blob, and I haven't searched for it on YouTube or anything, so I haven't seen this since I was a kid, but my memory is that the Blob was kind of translucent. It had something swishing around inside of it in this Electric Company sketch. So I also had that image of the Blob. So when I saw the Steve McQueen Blob, I was expecting something like a cross between the vitamin character and that Electric Company kind of translucent thing. And of course it was nothing like either of those. And I remember I was a little confused as a kid, like, well, what is the Blob? I mean, there's the vitamin character doesn't look like that, and the Electric Company had something else, and now this movie is this red jelly looking thing. I was very confused as a kid. I didn't know what was the Blob. I've got mixed messages coming at me. So I had to interpret it myself, like, what do I think the Blob is? And I decided that the Steve McQueen movie Blob was the official Blob. That was the Blob. And these other blobs were other blobs. So that's how I sorted it all out. Like, the Boris Karloff Frankenstein monster was the Frankenstein monster. And then, like, Christopher Lee's Frankenstein, or Frankenberry or whatever, that was all other Frankensteins. So I had it all worked out. So those are the names of the monsters. And again, I really knew them more from the advertising than from the vitamins themselves. It was really more soaking up the advertising, the commercials and stuff, and the package artwork that exposed me to the characters. If all I'd ever gotten was just like a plain bottle like this with no artwork and just the vitamin pieces, I wouldn't have known what these characters were. I wouldn't have cared. So that brings us to the advertising. So what's really cool about these vitamins is that the pitchman for the vitamins was Vincent Price. Vincent Price was the advertising spokesman for the Bristol-Myers Monster Vitamins. He did print magazine ads, and we're showing you one right now. And he also did at least one television commercial. And in this television commercial, he's sitting in a haunted house, kind of a setting, and he's talking to mothers. He's saying, "Mother, you need to give your kids monster vitamins. Mother, they're very good for your kids. So take it from me, mother." So that commercial it's from 1974. The TV commercial is from 1974. I'm going to include a link to that commercial in the description, so you can watch it in its entirety. The only surviving copy of the commercial is owned by the man who art directed the commercial, Warren Godfrey, who was a very well-known art director. So it's through him that we still have this commercial to view on YouTube. I like at the end how he pulls up the trapdoor and his kids are down there. He's asking them if they want Monster Vitamins or if they like the Monster Vitamins. They're saying, yeah, they're down in the dungeon. He closes it back again. So you can't go wrong with Vincent Price advertising your Monster product. That was pretty cool. And I do remember seeing that commercial as a kid. I do remember that. So one of the interesting things about that commercial is the way he keeps saying mother, mother, and there's a reason for that. Because I looked online before I shot this and did a little research, and it's so odd how the more things change, the more they stay the same. Because I found a report from an FTC commission hearing, Federal Trade Commission hearing, where the hearing's from 1974, and it's saying how in 1972, Bristol-Myers agreed not to market their vitamins to children through child-directed advertising. So they agreed not to advertise these vitamins on like Saturday morning cartoons and TV programs directed to children. And they agreed they would stop doing that. And then the FTC is suggesting that they went back on their word and they are still advertising to children. And then Bristol-Myers representatives are countering and saying, no, the TV advertising we do is scheduled during programs that are directed to adults. So TV shows that are directed to adults. We don't schedule our commercials during children's advertising, children's TV shows. Also, in the commercials, we make sure it's directed not towards children. It doesn't say, hey, children, buy these vitamins. Our commercials are directed towards adults, specifically mothers. So we go out of our way to make sure that the commercial, in the content of the commercial, is directed towards adult mothers, not directly to kids. And then they go on the argument to say, of course, even though we advertise during these adult TV programs, undoubtedly there are some children who do watch these adult TV programs. However, they are not directed to children. And I'm just reading this thinking, is this a time loop? Because this language is what we're going through right now with the FTC and YouTube. Same kind of arguments, same kind of back and forth, and it's ridiculous. And here's Bristol-Myers in the early 70s justifying a Vincent Price TV campaign using the same kind of arguments about, is it directed to kids? Is it not directed to kids? Are kids watching? How many kids are watching? Does that mean it's directed to kids? No, it's directed to adults. And the FTC making the same kind of arguments that, well, you're still directing this to kids. So this has been going on that long. The same babbling, the same nonsense. Oh, brother. Even in 1974. So there's the Vincent Price TV commercial, and you can see the entire commercial in this link that I'm going to include in the description. But that's not the only commercial he made. That's the most famous one. But I have here an animation cell from another commercial. So this is an animation cell from a Bristol-Myers Monster Vitamins commercial. And each of these characters are a different a different sheet of acetate. They're not all drawn on the same sheet. Each one is a different sheet. Now the background is sort of like a photocopy, so I'm not sure what the origin of that background is, but definitely it looks like that the characters are designed to interact with that background, because you see, I think as Gorgonzola is well, he's in there twice. Gorgonzola is coming up out of the window of the box. So it's not the Vincent Price commercial. This is for a different commercial. And I don't know if I saw this one or not. I'm not the only person who has animation cells from this commercial. There were a few of these that hit the market many years ago, and I got this one. But let's see, we got the Blob, we got Gorgonzola twice, we've got Screaming Mimi, and she's not, this is interesting, she has 2 arms in this animation. She has 2 arms, and her hair's down, so that's interesting. And it looks like, what's his name? Babbly Bat. Babbly Bat is kind of frowning, and he has his wings down, and I'm wondering if he's upside down. I'm wondering if that cell should be upside down, or should be turned the other way. He should be hanging upside down. I don't know. There's the Blob jumping around up there. So that's really cool. Those are actual cells from the commercial. Hand-drawn original from the commercial. But I don't remember that commercial with the kitchen counter like that. Was Vincent Price also in that one? I don't know. That commercial isn't online, so we don't really know for sure. I've read some speculation about it, but we just don't know. We don't have that commercial to look at today, unfortunately. I'm thinking Vincent Price probably was not in it, because if he were, then that same art director would have probably worked on it. Not for certain, I'm just guessing. And then if he had worked on it, then he would be able to tell us, yes, there was another commercial, and he would probably have the copy of it, like he did the famous one that we have. So there was a number of commercials, and I do, as a kid, I remember multiple commercials. The only one I specifically remember is that Vincent Price one. But I know that there was a campaign that continued over time that I was exposed to that educated me about what all these monster characters were and what their personalities were, and that's how I got to know the characters, and that's why I wanted to eat the monster vitamins. So it was a very effective campaign. There's other merchandise. There's a 45 RPM record that was some kind of a promotional item, and I'm also going to link to that in the description. It's on YouTube, and you can listen to it on YouTube. So you'll find the link in the description. I don't know what the story is on that. I don't think anybody knows how that record was distributed. Was it offered like on the back of the box, like send in box tops and get this record? I don't know. Nobody knows. There's no evidence of how they used that record. One would assume it was some kind of a mail-in item, but we don't really know. And also, just this past year, there were paper cutout Halloween masks on eBay of these characters. I didn't get them. I didn't find out until after the auction was over. But there was like cardboard cutout masks that, with eyes you'd cut out of these characters on eBay. So they did quite a lot of merchandising and promotional stuff for these vitamins. It wasn't just the vitamins. They did other kinds of merchandise and promotions. It was a bigger thing than just putting the vitamins on the shelf and saying, here it is. These vitamins are pretty rare to find today. An unused package is very rare. I haven't looked for them lately, but they're very rare to find unopened, unused bottles or intact boxes. I don't know how many different kinds of variations there are. I know that, as I said, there was a big one and a small one, and I think this is the small one. I think the one I had before was bigger. There's with and without iron. I don't know if the artwork is different. I mean, I'm sure it says with iron or without iron or whatever on the box somewhere, but I don't know if it's a different color or if it's very noticeable, if there's different artwork. So right there, you've got at least probably 4, big and small, with iron, without iron, 4 variations out there somewhere. But I've only seen, I don't know, 3 or 4 boxes and bottles ever as a collector, including the 2 I had. Not that I've been looking that hard, but I'm kind of aware of what's out there and what people have and what they're showing off. And over the last 30 years, I've only seen, like I said, maybe 3 or 4 examples. I'm sure there's more out there, but the fact that I've only seen that many would tell me that that it's very rare. But I'm very happy to have these. It's an important part of my childhood, and it's different from a toy or a figure or a model or a mask. It's different. It tells a broader story of what it was like to be a child in that era. It really was the monster era, the 70s monster era, and I was a 70s monster kid, and there were just monsters everywhere. You could go to Burger Chef, which is a fast food chain that doesn't exist anymore, and get what we now call a Happy Meal, what McDonald's would call a Happy Meal. I think they called it a fun meal at Burger Chef, and they had monster characters, their own monster characters. And in fact, I'm looking at it, but I can't reach it from here. There's a Burger Chef vampire item right over there. That was from a fun meal. And so you could just go to fast food, eat monster stuff, and go to the grocery store and buy monster cereal and get your monster vitamins and sit down and watch classic monster movies on TV and play with your monster figures and read Famous Monsters magazine, have your monster t-shirt. It was, if you're monster oriented, that was the time, the 1970s. I wasn't around in the 60s, so I don't know what that was like, but I'm sure that was cool too. But I'll vouch for the 70s. That was a great era to be a kid. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you again for all of your well wishes for my cat Stinker. I'm keeping him comfortable and giving him all the love I can. And I don't know how many days I've got with him, but I'm just going to try to make the most of the time I have and make his time here as peaceful and loving as possible, and until, like all of us, he'll have to pass on. And thank you for your support of this channel as we've experienced this FTC COPPA crisis. I'm very heartened to see all the support that I've gotten and that other channels have gotten, that there's definitely a community out there of people who care about each other and are pulling for one another and want everyone to succeed. And I like that. That's how it should be. So that's it. I always sign off by saying, he who dies with the most toys is dead. And that's true. It's just toys, just stuff. The important thing is the love and enjoyment that you get out of it and that you get from one another. It's just stuff. But it's cool stuff.